So in today's video, I'm going to talk about 4 pieces of filmmaking gear that you can get under $50 that I would highly recommend that you guys pick up. So let's start off with the 5-in-1 reflector. Now the 5-in-1 reflector, in my opinion, is one of the most affordable and versatile pieces of filmmaking gear that you can get for controlling and manipulating light. So what exactly is a 5-in-1 reflector? Now a 5-in-1 reflector allows you to manipulate and control light in 5 different ways. And this can be done through the white side, the black side, the gold side, the silver side, and the piece in the middle, which is diffusion material. So let's start off with the silver side. Now the silver side probably reflects the most light of any of the sides. The light that comes from this is more of a specular light. When light hits the silver side, you have some sides which are very bright and some which are a little bit darker. Now let's talk about the gold side. Similar to the silver side, this is also going to reflect very bright light. And that the color of this side is gold, the light that's reflected is more warmer. So you have to bear that in mind. With this setup, I'm shooting this outdoors, but the light that's hitting my face is much warmer than the source light, which is the sunlight, which probably would be around 5600 Kelvin. So bear that in mind when you're using the gold side. So probably the best scenario to use this in natural light conditions would be at golden hour, because the sunlight coming during golden hour is much warmer. Now let's talk about the white side. The white side is often used for fill or bounce light. Now the white side will reflect light similar to the gold and silver side, but what you'll notice that it's not as bright as the silver or the gold side. The light that is reflected back is more even. In this shot you can see that what I've done is I've placed the white side on the shadow side of my face just to add a little bit of fill light onto that side. Now let's talk about the black side. Now the black side doesn't reflect light. What it does is it takes away light. They often refer to it as creating negative fill. So rather than filling light, it takes away light. In this example, by placing the black side closer to the other side of my face where there's no light, I'm creating even more contrast because it's taking away the little bit of light that was hitting that side of the face. So this is what is referred to as negative fill. Now the final piece of the 5-in-1 reflector is the diffusion material. Diffusion material will allow you to soften the light source. So in scenarios, let's say where you don't have a softbox but you have a light source, what you can do is you can place that diffusion material in front of your subject, and that's going to soften the light source that's hitting the subject, making it look more flattering. I simply place the diffusion side of the 5-in-1 reflector on a light stand, and then I simply just shone the light through the diffusion material. Also, just to add, you'll see that in the BTS shot, you can also see I've draped another piece of the 5-in-1 reflector across the boom arm. That was just to flag off some of the light that was spilling onto the background, just to make the shot look a little bit nicer. Another great scenario you can use the 5-in-1 reflectors when you're filming outdoors. Here's what a light hitting my face looks like without any diffusion material. Now here's what it looks like with the diffusion material placed between me and the sunlight. And as you can see, the light hitting my face is much softer and is not as harsh. One thing to bear in mind when filming outdoors and using this 5-in-1 reflector is shadows. The way I placed the 5-in-1 reflector, as I was filming by myself, I didn't have enough time to, let's say, set up on the C-stand and have the placement of the diffusion material so that I wasn't casting any shadows onto the background. But I just want to set something up quick just to show you guys what this diffusion material can do when filming in hard sunlight. So the 5-in-1 reflector is something I'd highly recommend that you guys pick up. It's lightweight, compact and portable, and it's very inexpensive. So next up, we're going to talk about color charts. Now color charts can be used to make sure that you're getting accurate colors coming out of your camera, as well as helping you to set exposure correctly and white balance. Now I typically tend to use a color chart in order to set white balance, as well as ensuring that I'm getting accurate colors coming out of my camera. I typically tend not to use it for setting exposure because I prefer to use false color. But let's say, for example, if I wanted my overall scene to be exposed to middle gray, what I'll do is I'll just simply use the color chart, place it in the scene, and then I would set my exposure accordingly to middle gray using the false color. In this example, I'm going to show you how I use the color chart for setting white balance. And I'm filming this outside, and because there's very harsh sunlight, I still wanted to have the aperture wide open at 2.8, but in order to do that, I had to put an ND in front of the lens. But unfortunately, the ND that I have casts a green tint on my footage. I should really change it at some point. When I'm going to be using this variable ND, what I'll often do is ensure that I've got a reference shot with a color chart in it to ensure that I can set the white balance correctly later in post. When it comes to using the color chart for setting colors, the way which I use it the most is when I'm doing a multicam shoot, whereby I'm filming with 2 different cameras. So I use it to make sure that I can match the colors coming from both of the cameras. So what we have here is a multicam setup, and in this scenario, I'll definitely use a color chart because I have my A cam, which is the Pocket 6K, and my B cam, which is the Sony ZV-E1. Now, these cameras both have different color signs, so the colors won't match exactly. Now, the whole point of having a multicam setup is to be able to jump from one camera angle to another without it looking too jarring for the person that's viewing the video. So what you want to do in order to avoid it looking too jarring, you want to make sure that the colors match up fairly well. Now what you will do in those scenarios is I'll usually get the talent to hold the color chart just like in front of their face, because that way you're having the color chart being lit by the same lighting conditions that the talent will be lit by. I'll just record them holding the chart maybe for about 2 or 3 seconds. Then I'll use that reference shot when I'm grading and post in order to match up the colors from the two cameras. Even in scenarios where I'm filming a multi-cam setup and I'm using cameras from the same brand, I'll still use a color chart, because you can still have the same camera but the sensors will still be slightly different. Not all sensors will replicate color exactly the same. So I think whenever having a multi-cam setup, having a color chart is essential in order to make sure you're matching the colors. And next up, I want to talk about super clamps. Super clamps can be used so many different ways when it comes to rigging up filmmaking gear. So what are super clamps? It's a clamp that allows you to open it very wide and allows you to fit to both flat surfaces and round surfaces. And what's great about this is that the super clamp has so many different mounting options, which allows you to pair it with other pieces of filmmaking gear such as spigots, grip heads, boom arms, lights. So what I really love about the super clamp is that it allows me to rig up my camera in places that I wouldn't be able to do with a tripod or do handheld. And being able to do this allows me to have much more creative shots. Let's take this shot for example, from an angle which I don't think I've ever filmed anything from this angle, but I thought let me try something out. So all I did was I took the super clamp, attached it to my desk, then I took a grip head and then attached an extension boom arm from that grip head, and then attached another grip head on top of the boom arm, and took a spigot and used that to attach my ball head, and that ball head is holding up the Sony ZV-1. Now the Sony ZV-1 is a fairly lightweight camera, so I'm fairly confident that this can hold the weight, because it may look a little bit crazy seeing the setup, but for me this works perfect, especially with a shot that I'm just gonna get quickly from a unique angle. I really like this setup here. It's fairly easy to set up, didn't take a lot of time, and can be used in spaces where there's not that much space as well. They're so versatile, so I'll definitely recommend that you pick up a super clamp. So the final piece of gear that I want to talk about is top handles. Now top handles may not seem like the coolest piece of gear to buy, but for me, as someone who shoots a lot of handheld footage, without a top handle I wouldn't be able to get good handheld footage. When you're shooting handheld, one of the key things that you want to do is you want to avoid having micro jitters. When you're using a top handle, you let gravity do its thing. So gravity is taking up most of the weight of the camera, whereas when you're holding it by the side handle, you're having to use your arms more to hold up the weight of the camera, put more strain on your arms, and therefore increasing the chance of there being more micro jitters in your footage. But when you're using a top handle, you'll see that because you're letting gravity do its thing, one, it causes less strain on your arm, and two, it also helps with reducing the micro jitters. So those were the 4 pieces of filmmaking gear, all under $50, that I would highly recommend that you guys pick up as part of your filmmaking kit. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please give this video a like and subscribe to my channel, and let me know in the comments what piece of filmmaking gear under $50 that you guys would recommend. But for now, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.